All right, this is the first video in the Wizard with a Gun audio breakdown series. I have decided to start with the Mechantress, the boss from the first biome, because I consider her to be the simplest, probably one of the simplest, cleanest examples of thematic sound design in the game. Her theme came to me pretty quickly when I started to see her design and her animations and everything. I eventually landed on trains. It didn't even take that long to figure out what it was going to be, based a lot on her animation set, which you'll see all her different movesets in this series, and things like the fire that shoots out of her hat and stuff like that. There's a very locomotive aspect to how she looks and how she moves. And this first attack here is just her simple melee attack. So it's pretty straightforward, relatively quick sound, melee attacks, not a lot to them. First of all, just a clean, simple swipe. Nothing interesting there. Next is this white noise layer with a little bit of color on it. I really wanted to, right away, early on, invoke, with this particular attack, the sword swipe sound from the original FF7. That's just the thing that I hear when you get any sort of swiping like this happening. It's a very influential game, I suppose. But PlayStation 1, especially back then, an overwhelming amount of the sound design in that game is white noise, or some sort of element of white noise. And you can do anything with white noise. It's almost limitless. And so just a regular white noise track with a little bit of flavor. I put on a bit crusher first to give it a little bit more character, which incidentally also gives it a kind of a Steam release-esque element to it, and then a flanger to bring it up at the end, and then this pitch change here for a little flavor, a little more flavor. I don't know, not super complicated. And then this, the most straightforward thing in the universe, doesn't even have any effects on it. It's just a metal impact. This one here, that's just straight white noise with another bit crusher on it to keep the highs up. And this whole thing has a light reverb on it. I guess, I don't know, define light, but it has reverb. And then this one here, when I mentioned earlier, trying to replicate the sword swipe from the original Final Fantasy VII, this was kind of my closest approximation I could get. It's actually a combination of these two elements. And this actually is, I made this in Serum. Opened up the noise, the white noise thing here, set it to pitch tracking, so goes up and down, and then some distortion, a little bit of compression to really make it super aggressive. And then this element together, I think they do a great job. I was pretty happy about that. And this is just a pretty flat, empty thing to give it some body. Just parts of an explosion. I think it's, yeah, bomb, water is what it says. This one here. Yeah, see, now this is one of the probably the most important train-related element of this track is crossing bell. But it has a delay on it. I do love a good delay. I use them all the time. I find that they do a very good job of tapering sounds off in ways that reverbs don't really cover very well. And obviously with the bell, it just makes it even better, because then you get that crossing bell sound to it element. Just beef. Ran it through Camel Crusher though, so instead of just a it gets a lot more high into it. If you've never used Camel Crusher, it is free distortion plugin, and it's fantastic. There's no reason to not have it. And this another one is just something that gives it kind of, more of that tapering effect that the delay does, because sort of, without it, it's kind of just sort of stops. and honestly, kind of gives it the the distant train off in the distance, kind of sound to it as well. And then for the vocals are really interesting in this. By which I mean, I only had so many vocals to choose from, and I think I might have brought this up in the next video, which is a funny sentence, about how difficult it can be to decide where to go with vocals in terms of like, are they fully human? Are they voice acted? Do they need to be a person? Or, how do they match the character that you're making a voice element for, especially humanoid vocals? Creatures aren't such a big deal, obviously, because they can sound however you want. But when you're dealing with humanoid-esque characters, like the Mechantress, obviously is not human, but she's mostly human, and it's like, where's the separation on that? And so all of the voices in WizGun are actually sort of a combination of several different vocal layers, just to kind of remove them a bit from the human element of their character designs. And then this is just, I believe this is, yes, this female grunt shouts. I think I have this pitched down, obviously. Oh, that's right, because I have the pitch for the whole project down to 3/4 speed. So if I were to go normal speed, then you got your, much more female-esque, the higher register vocal of that. But it made a lot more sense, both in the animation speed and also just how I wanted it to sound, to bring the pitch of the entire project down using the playback rate. And so for the effects on this, first we'll start with some EQ, pull out the highs, helps with the lower register element of it. And then there's 3 different pitch shifters on this, and I think that's a big part of the character that it has. Yeah. And then ring modulator. Doesn't do a lot, but just kind of gives it like a fast, super fast tremolo kind of sound. And then OTT makes it just come to life. OTT is fantastic. And then reverb for the final cut, just to give it, space. And there's 2 other ones that I ultimately put together for this. So that's pretty much it for this melee attack. The next video in the series is the phase transition that she does when you start the actual fight, and then when you get about halfway through it, and she changes into the second phase. And I think that video does a better job of really showcasing the locomotive elements of her sound kit, I guess, if only just by virtue of being more complex and longer. So if you want to know more about that, go check that video out. They'll all be in a playlist here for ease of access.